Today we are going to cover cleaning VCR heads, and that covers both VHS and Betamax. Check it out. So in today's video, I wanted to cover just how to clean VCR heads. I covered a little bit of this in my last video, which was how to capture analog tape to digital, which I did with my Betamax player. So in that video, I cover a lot of things, one of which is cleaning the heads. I thought it'd be nice to do a dedicated video on just cleaning VCR heads and cover both Betamax and VHS, just so that anybody with any kind of VCR can understand how to open it up and clean all the parts inside. Basically, what you need to do is open it up and identify the tape path. And the tape path is slightly different depending on if it's VHS or Betamax, but essentially you look for guide rollers and you look for erase heads and audio heads, and they look, once you know what they look like, they're pretty easy to spot. And you can go ahead and clean those with alcohol and a Q-tip. That's pretty standard to be able to do that. Just try to keep the little fibers from coming off and just make sure you wipe it clean. The tricky part is cleaning the actual head assembly itself, and that is the big metal drum shaped thing in the middle, and that is what actually reads the video signal off of the tape. And the way it does that is inside of that drum there are spinning heads, and those heads are little, if you look closely, they're looks like a little PCB board almost. There's not a ton of difference between the VHS and the Betamax is conceptually, but the VHS heads tend to have the whole drum, the outside of the drum actually rotates, whereas the Betamax tends to have the heads rotating inside a stationary drum. So what you're gonna want to do though is you're gonna, instead of the Q-tip, you don't use the Q-tip on the head. The reason being is if you look closely here, you can see all sorts of little fibers. This is not focusing very well, but you can see little fibers, and imagine this is the head, and it's gonna scrape off little fibers, and all this stuff's gonna come off inside your drum assembly and clog it all up. You don't want that. So what you need is something that does not have any sort of lint or fibers that can come off inside your tape assembly. You can use paper. That is one thing that people use. If you're in a pinch and you have nothing else, you can soak a piece of paper in alcohol and you can use that to do this. I prefer not to do that. Instead, these can be had. They're kind of expensive, but these are probably the best thing I've found to clean heads. And if you really want to make sure that it's done right, get some of these. All you do is dip this in alcohol, and this is just a little piece of chamois on the end of here, so it's real soft and it doesn't actually leave any residue or lint or anything inside your tape head. So what you're going to want to do is you want to get the chamois strip soaked in alcohol, press it up against the drum assembly, and you want to make sure that once it's pressed up against it, don't press too hard, but don't press too lightly either. It's one of those things you kind of have to just sort of feel it, but you don't want to put too much pressure, but you want to have just enough so that the head can rub against that chamois strip. And you want to keep the chamois strip or piece of paper, if you choose to go that route, you want to keep that stationary and not move that for the duration of the cleaning process. So push it up against the head and then slowly turn the head around several times, and that will allow the head to brush past the alcohol soaked chamois strip or paper, and the dirt will hopefully scrape off of the top of the head that way. And one way to know that you've done it correctly is if you pull the chamois strip or piece of paper away, you can see a nice line of dirt on there, which shows where the head has made contact and the dirt has come off of the head. You may not see that if your head is already relatively clean, but that is one way to know that you have cleaned something off. So when you do this, be very careful to keep the chamois strip stationary as you're spinning the drum. And if you're cleaning the outside of the drum, be very mindful of where those heads are and make sure you don't bump those heads as you're cleaning the outside of the drum. Another thing to keep in mind is that when you're pressing the chamois strip against the drum and you're doing the rotation, make sure that you stop. Once you're ready to stop, make sure you stop the rotation of the head and see where the head is. Ideally, you don't want that head touching the chamois strip when you're removing the chamois strip, because you have the potential as you're removing it to bump the head. So you want to make sure that once you're done and you're ready to move the chamois strip, that the heads are pointed somewhere else and not in contact with the chamois strip itself. That'll make sure that you don't bump the heads at all. So that's the basics of it. This is a pretty short video. It's not a hard process once you know how to do it. It's just you have to keep in mind a few things as you're doing it. Once you do it a couple times, it's actually pretty easy. So give it a try. Thanks for watching. Hope you found this useful. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks.
All right, you know what? This was dumb. Dump it. Trash it. This was garbage.